We could certainly check and see if there's anyone interested to speak on that topic.
No, from the sheriff's deputy.
Okay, so I'll open the public hearing, and anyone wish to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll open discussion for the board. If anyone has any discussion? Okay, we need to have a vote.
I'll make a motion that we may move forward with the public hearing as presented by
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and with no more discussion, Madam Clerk, would you?
Yes, so on the motion made by Supervisor Thompson to move forward with the necessary easements and seconded by Supervisor Cundiff. Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Thompson,
Yes.
Supervisor Cundiff,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Tatum,
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Mitchell is absent for this vote.
Okay, so this item number 12 passes, and we'll move on to the next one, Mr. Sandy, to amend section 25179, dwelling two-family or duplex, section 25180A, minimum lot size, section 25188, special requirements of the Franklin County Code. So, Mr. Sandy?
Yes, sir. So your second public hearing is actually a petition to amend the zoning ordinance to allow duplexes as a permitted use by special use permit. And so if you recall, a couple months ago, we had discussion about, we had a citizen actually come forward and ask for your consideration of allowing duplexes in the A1 zoning district. And so you referred that matter back to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission actually held two discussions about it, two work sessions. And then on October 13th, they went ahead and made a recommendation for your consideration. And that recommendation was to allow duplexes to be permitted in A1 with a special use permit, and also requiring that they be on a lot that's at least 1 acre in size. And so that's the long and short of the code amendment, is that we're amending Chapter 25 to now allow in 25-179 to allow a two-family dwelling, which is a duplex, as a use that's allowed by special use permit. So we're putting it in the code, but for any one in particular property, that individual property owner still has to come forward to this board and hold a public hearing and ask for permission to put a duplex on that property. What we're simply doing here is putting in the code to give folks that ability to come forward and request that special use permit. In addition, we're amending 25-180 and 25-188 to indicate that any duplex has to have at least a 1 acre lot size associated with it. That would be the minimum. You know, they could certainly do it on a larger lot, but have to have at least 1 acre for any duplex unit to be located on an individual parcel. And so that's the recommendation from the Planning Commission, is to approve that. And they recommended that by a vote of 5-0 to 2. 2 members were absent. They weren't opposed. They were absent at that meeting. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. And then we do also need to hold a public hearing for this item as well.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sandy,
Yes, sir.
is 1 acre large enough for the septic system for a duplex with how many bedrooms?
Well, there's not really a set acreage for the number of bedrooms. It really more relates to the soil itself on that particular site. That's really going to be the dictating factor. And so we had this discussion at the Planning Commission, is how big is enough? And they felt like, and in consultation with the health department, thought like at least a minimum of 1 acre is what would be necessary. In some cases, it may require more than that for them to meet the requirements of the health department. So they, again, what we're suggesting is a minimum. And so If they still have to get approval from VDH for the septic system, and if that requires them to be 1.5 acres or 2 acres, they'll have to make their lot that size, or at least have an easement onto an adjoining property to
So
accommodate that septic
They will
system
have that certificate before they come back,
before they can build it.
before the planning and zoning board and before it comes to us.
Well, they won't necessarily.
That will be made a restriction.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what the commission ultimately ended up with, was through the conditions that they said, well, we can limit the overall number of bedrooms for one, per units. So for instance, with a duplex is 2 units, if each one is 4 units, that's a total of 8 bedrooms. That's a pretty big septic system.
Yes.
And so what they've looked at is actually in the conditions saying the approval is for a total of 4 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms or whatever the request was for. And then additionally, what they talked about was, they would have to have an approved septic system before they would be able to get a building permit. And that's what, through the building department, we regulate that they have to actually have an approved permit from the health department before they could begin construction.
Did planning and zoning, did they discuss having a discussion on public water and sewer?
They did a little bit. And of course, they felt like that would be ideal, that if they were on public water and sewer. But I think the consensus was we need to have the allowance and give people the ability in the rural areas, in the A1 areas, to at least make the request. And they felt like on a case-by-case basis, the commission and board could review each one, and they felt comfortable with, still having that ability to review each one on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
have a
Chairman, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Sandy, just kind of a housekeeping thing. As we amend ordinances and so forth, when is the next comp plan review scheduled?
We don't really have a schedule to review the comp plan.
Okay, I'm just wondering, are we tracking these to make sure that the comp plan and the ordinance amendments are in alignment?
As far as, like housing policies and things like that. What we've always envisioned here in the coming year with the new housing studies
Yes.
and so forth is that we probably will be revising the housing chapter as a result of that,
Okay,
of the plan. We don't have a date to revise the entire plan, but I definitely see where revising the housing chapter is probably going to be something that we're going to want to look at in 2021.
well, aren't we on a 5-year statutory review period?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It doesn't, the code doesn't say you have to pick it up every 5 years and review every aspect of it. It really says that at least every 5 years there needs to be an update.
Right.
And we've clearly done updates to the plan. We've adopted water service areas. We adopted a broadband plan. We adopted village plans. So we've made updates to it, and we've continued to do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do a complete rewrite of the
Okay.
plan.
Thank you.
I think the idea there really is it just doesn't sit on the shelf and nothing ever happens to it.
Okay.
But back to your original question, I think the housing part is something we definitely want to take up in 2021
Okay.
as we go through this housing,
Yep.
process that we're looking at.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes,
The health department can override this minimum lot size. In other words, what I'm trying to say, if you put a duplex in and 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, whatever, an acre's not gonna cover the sewer off of it because it won't perk right. So what I'm trying to say is, can the health department override this minimum lot size?
I don't know if I would use the term override. I think what they can say is that there's no site within that 1 acre that can handle the septic system, that is approvable for the septic system. So at that point, you kind of have 2 choices. You either make your lot bigger to find an area that will accommodate it, or you get an easement from the adjoining property to house or to handle that septic system. So what we're saying is your physical lot has to be at least 1 acre.
Okay.
You could potentially have your septic system on your neighbor's property if they let you do that. But if you need to make it bigger to accommodate that septic system, then your lot may have to be bigger. So I don't know if I'd use override, but they can
Well,
influence,
yeah, basically it overrides.
they can
Well, it's
influence the lot size, certainly.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is if you don't have land to cover, then you gotta do something different. But I
Yeah,
just
and
wanna
in
make
some
sure-
cases, based on the soil type, that may be,
Right, yeah.
that people may have to get
Yeah.
a bigger lot than 1 acre. That is true.
But either way, the health department have to say so as far as,
Correct. Either way, they have to get an approved septic system that
Right.
accommodates the number of bedrooms that is in the
Right.
duplex.
okay, thank you.
I remember, Mr. Sandy, I don't remember if he was here or not then, but a similar discussion was held when we did the village concepts. And it had to do with multifamily dwellings. And that's when I was asking if, community or city or ever how you want to put it, water and sewer is available instead of using a well and a septic tank because of the underground, polluting the groundwater with the septic and everything. So, yeah, that's where that question came from on my part to address
Yeah, and I
the
think
other- my
there was,
colleagues' questioning.
there was actually discussion at the planning commission about maybe recommending that we allow duplexes by right. But some of that discussion went back to water and sewer and that, having the
Village
opportunity.
concept.
The village concept, and then outside the village, also having the ability to review each one of them on a case-by-case basis and make sure they were appropriate for that area.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, Mr. Chairman, I don't think anyone signed up specifically for this item, but we do need to see if there's anyone that might want
Yes.
to speak.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak?
I have not had anyone sign up, and it looks like we're checking outside. Nope.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing and open for board discussion.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with this as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Thompson,
Yes?
Supervisor Cundiff,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Tatum,
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell.
Yes,
And
motion
Supervisor
carries.
Mitchell is absent for this vote. Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sandy, this is an application of Russell Center requesting a special use permit to allow for this construction of 2 dwellings, 2-family or duplex on a minimum of 2-acre portion of a 14.3 acre property currently zoned A1 agriculture. So, Mr. Sandy?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the third public hearing, which is attachment 14 in your book, is relative to a special use permit request for a duplex. So you just approved that, and that was effective immediately. I think if you remember some past discussions, the Senates had also initiated a request for a duplex. Originally, they were going to apply for multifamily zoning because that's the only place they could do it. Once they understood that the board and the planning commission were considering allowing duplexes as a special use permit or allowing them in A1, which is what their property is currently zoned, they put a hold on their application until that process had moved forward. They resumed the process once they understood that the recommendation was to allow it by special use permit. And so they modified their request to change it from rezoning to requesting that special use permit in A1. And so that's the request before you tonight on their property, is to allow them to build 2 duplexes on this property. This is the same property, if you recall, 1 or 2 months ago now, when they were looking at some cabins for short-term rentals. This would be the property actually up on the road, closer to the Bethel Lane. So again, this totally is a 14-acre portion. They'd be looking at 2 acres, so an acre per each duplex. Each duplex that they're considering would be about 955 square feet, with 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, kitchen, living area, and utility room. The area around the property where these are proposed will be comprised of several other residences, but the closest one is about 100 feet away. And the part behind it is really undeveloped. with the exception of those cabins that they came before that they wanted to build in association with the wedding venue and the wake park that they have there on the adjoining property. So this request would result in an additional 4 dwelling units on the property. And so this is the property map and the location in the Union Hall District on Bethel Lane. Again, just kind of a zoomed in version of that property here in the blue with also kind of a residual piece across the street. This adjoining property here is also owned by the applicants, and this is the area where that wake park, and if you noticed on some of the videos earlier today, there were some clips of people wakeboarding there, but also there is a wedding venue there on the property as well. And so this is low-density residential in our comprehensive plan, which talks about dwelling units of 1 to 2 units per acre. And again, this is just an aerial view of the property. So there is a pond or lake here, but the wake park is actually just here at the bottom of the screen on the adjoining parcel. And the wedding venue is just off the parcel there as well. But to kind of orient you, this is Brooks Mill Road, this is Longhorn Road here, and then this is Bethel Lane, which this property actually fronts on.
Could you go back to that picture?
This one?
Yeah, and use your cursor and show us where these duplexes are gonna be built.
They'll be up here on the front part of the property.
Okay,
And then those cabins were kind of down in this area, if you recall, that where they were proposed to be.
thank you.
So just a few points from the staff analysis and from attachment 14. As we've talked before, and I mentioned earlier, there is the Regional Commission's housing study, which they made a presentation just last week on that study, and part of that study pointed out the real need for additional housing and different types of housing as well that the county is seeing, and the region really as a whole is seeing the need for more owner-occupied housing, but also more rental housing to a large degree. We've seen in those reports where the vacancy rates of rentals are extremely low, and so there's very little supply out there in the market. And so this would help to meet some of that need by providing some rental opportunities in this part of the county. The construction of the 2 duplexes is supported by the comp plan, low density designation. Because of the acreage of this tract, they're still within that 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre. Public safety, fire marshal, and building official have reviewed it, have no issues at this point. Of course, they will have to meet all the codes, building codes for the structure and have all that approved before they could occupy the structure, as well as the health department. Staff really anticipates minimal impacts from this request due to kind of the location and proximity to other residences. There will be an increase in traffic just with, having those 4 additional dwelling units, but not anything that we anticipate to be a significant factor. There were no public comments that have been received about the request or in opposition to the request. And so the Planning Commission is recommending approval of the special use permit with 5 conditions. And I'll kind of go through those here. Number 1 is that the special use permit authorizes the construction of duplexes on this parcel 053-001-0000, and it shall only apply to 2 duplexes for a total of 4 dwelling units. Each dwelling shall be placed on an individual lot meeting the zoning and subdivision requirements. So going back to our previous discussion, the minimum 1 acre lot size. No future dwellings shall be constructed on the property unless they come back and get it approved by the Board of Supervisors after a recommendation from the Planning Commission. Number 2 just kind of really reiterates that you have to comply with the lot size requirements of the 1 acre. Number 3, as I mentioned earlier, building official, fire marshal, everybody needs to sign off on that structure before they are occupied. And we want to make sure that those structures have clearly marked 911 addresses on those, so there's no issue when public safety is responding to these structures of which unit is which. Number 4, have to have health department approval. And then number 5, that those duplex units shall not be used for short-term rentals. So this is not a way to get around any short-term rental requirements. This is truly a long-term rental, which according to our ordinance would be over 30 days. So they could rent them monthly, they could, over 30 days, or they could do 6 months, but it has to be more of a long-term rental and not a, overnight rental. And so those are the 5 conditions that have been recommended by the Planning Commission. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do know the Senaffs are here to speak. I don't know if there's anyone else here that wants to speak to this request or not. But I'll be happy to answer any questions before they come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I just had a quick question, Steve. Do the ordinances have any, or does it discourage contiguous, if there's, this is a totally owned parcel, of so many acres, is there anything that prohibits contiguous lots being built out within ownership of numerous acres? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm.
I guess if I understand you right, the restriction would be that each of the lots has to meet a minimum lot size and has
Yeah.
to meet a minimum amount of public road frontage.
Okay.
So they couldn't divide up the whole tract into 1-acre tracts unless they had enough road frontage
Okay.
to satisfy that. Is that kind of?
Yes, my question
Get-
was very awkward. I
So
apologize.
they would almost have to build a new road into the subdivision to kind of build it out.
Okay.
More to be able to kind of maximize, I guess, the number of lots. So the governing restrictions, I guess, would be subdivision and zoning, which would, require that amount of road frontage unless those lots are larger than 5 acres.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sandy. And I'll open up for public hearing, and if anyone wishes to speak, you could come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Russell Seneff, 395 Blue Lake Road, Union Hall with Blackwater Junction Farms, and thank you for letting me be the first one to bring this in here. If you have any questions, I'm here, but other than that, we're fine with everything Steve's put forward. We've talked to the health department, soil scientists, and everything's ready to go if it works for you guys. Any questions for me?
Mr. Chairman, I just love your positive disposition.
And I got my posse with me at once. So, thank you.
He has a driving force with him.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll open up for board discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go ahead and approve a special use permit with the 5 conditions.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Madam Clerk, would you poll the board, please?
Yes, sir. Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Cundiff?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Tatum?
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell?
Yes. Motion carries.
Have a good Christmas.
Thank you, Lori.
Yes, sir, my pleasure. Gotta take care of my.
Huh?
I said I gotta take care of the guys.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a 5-minute break, please?
you want to just read the first name and then I'll try to give him a call?
Yes. Henry Tunage.
Okay.
Call last? Okay. All right. Glenna Moore.
There you go. Ho, ho, ho.
How do we know it's him? How do you know it's him anyway?
At this point, 3 minutes, Ronnie.
How you know it's him, Jim?
I think we're all getting tired.
That's Steph's new.
Good evening and happy holidays. My name is Glenna Hawkins Moore. I live in Franklin County. For the next 3 minutes, I'd like you to imagine a black family vacation during the Jim Crow era. My parents were teachers at segregated Liam Wade School during years when black teachers were paid less than white teachers. My parents always believed travel was an important way to expose their own children to a world beyond the boundaries of Franklin County, Virginia. In the summer of 1960, they loaded my brother Kevin, 6, and me, 8, in our 1957 Plymouth station wagon to travel cross-country to California. By the way, there's room in the car for a few more. Ronnie Thompson, Ben Pinkett, and Francis Amos. I invite you to experience traveling while black in America during your youth years. We packed the car with luggage, pillows, blankets, a picnic basket full of sandwiches. Now, you may think that's a practical way for any family to travel, but for black families, it was a necessity because we could not count on white-owned restaurants and lunch counters to serve us. My parents purchased a map to go to California. But before we started west, we had to go northeast to Washington, D.C., and purchase something that's very essential, the Negro Traveler's Green Book. This book showed where black people could eat, buy gas, and which motels would accept non-whites. Along the way, while still in the South, we met other black travelers who advised my parents to do most of their driving during daylight hours because of the southern towns with signs saying, "Niggas be out of this town before the sun sets." Occasionally, one of my parents would say to the other, "Your cousins live over there." Well, Kevin and I eventually realized that was code for over there is a black community where we might feel safe and get information. My parents strictly followed rules of the road. It was a frightening thing for people of color to be detained by police on southern roads. My brother and I had to learn to control our bladder because gas stations frequently did not allow Negroes to use their restrooms. In fact, we saw a sign in Texas that said, "No dogs, Negroes, or Mexicans allowed inside." My parents tried to shield us from that degrading sign, but I saw it. It was Albuquerque, New Mexico before we found a motel that allowed blacks. I wish you all something this Christmas that the Confederate monument never represented, and that is peace on earth and goodwill to all mankind.
Larry Moore.
Good evening. My name is Larry Moore, and I live in Franklin County. I'm a true believer in the goodness of the human race. I believe in science. I believe in the freedom of religion. I believe in education. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that if you, the members of this board, had done just a little research on why the Daughters of the Confederacy decided to place those statues up when and where they are, then you would know the truth, and you would not have voted to keep an object of hate and treason on our courthouse lawn. But you did, even after the chairman of this board read a letter from the Jubal Early Preservation Trust, where he stated, and I quote, "The Jubal Early Preservation Trust wants nothing to do with that statue." Now, if the Jubal Early Preservation Trust wants nothing to do with that statue, why on earth would you, as a board, vote unanimously to keep it in front of the courthouse? You will have to answer that question for yourselves. Now, you want to attract business or industry to that new park you built on 220 North. When those industries come to Rocky Mount and drive past that hate symbol, how reluctant or committed will they be in locating to this county? You looked at the video from Black Lives Matter and did not appreciate the way that Franklin County was portrayed. Just remember, businesses today have an image to protect. Please ask yourself, what is more important, maintaining a hate symbol on the courthouse lawn in Rocky Mount, or showing the world and potential new businesses that we are a forward-thinking, innovative community that appreciates all of its citizens? And after all, don't you want all of this county's citizens to be able to speak positively about living here? Businesses have an image to protect, and they do great feasibility studies before they commit to locating in a particular area. Boone's Mill has opened up commerce throughout this county by removing the Confederate flags, which is a start. Now I ask you, can we get the statue in front of the courthouse removed? We can open up together or perish as fools fighting each other. In the meantime, I will keep hope alive and try to continue to believe in the goodness of the human race. Thank you.
Mariah Moore.
Hello, my name is Mariah Moore from Rocky Mount. The board voted to re-erect the monument without a referendum, and the board voted to become a Second Amendment sanctuary county without a referendum. Please do the right thing and vote to relocate a monument that has no historical value. Thank you.
Darnell Moore.
Good afternoon. I'm Larry Darnell Moore II, 55 First Street, Rocky Mount, Virginia. This has been a difficult year, but along with the difficulty, it has been a year of inspiration. I've been inspired by the opportunity that you as the board here have offered to listen to the voices from all sides. I've been inspired by the members of our community who've stood up, who've spoken out, and most sharply, I've been inspired by the young women who started, supported, and welcomed me into the Black Lives Matter of Franklin County. I'm specifically impressed by and willing to follow Bridget Craighead into her vision of a county that offers equal justice, opportunity for economic growth, and stronger connection between the residents of Franklin County. It's with this spirit that I'm making a request of you. On the 21st of December, we're holding a COVID-safe event here at the municipal building. It's in the parking lot, and it's to allow the community to question, to meet, to talk to the Black Lives Matter members of Franklin County and get a feel for how the community feels. We're modeling our event after this meeting, after these meetings. We're going to start by showing 2 social media vignettes about Black Lives Matter in Franklin County and then field questions in a drive-in style event. I'm requesting that you involve your constituents, that you ask the members of your community to come in for a face-to-face meeting as COVID safe as we can. An honest ear, an open heart will help create in this community what we're all striving for, which is equal justice, which is opportunities for economic growth, which is a stronger connection between the residents of Franklin County. If you could, please reach out. I'll be sending an email to each of you that has the particulars, 21st at 5 o'clock. Reach out to your community and come in and let's open this dialogue. Thank you.
Walter Lawson? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Walter Lawson Jr. I live here in Rocky Mount. The last time I spoke here before this august body, I was angry. My words were true, but my tone was harsh. And for that, I apologize. To be perfectly honest, I don't enjoy being here, but I find it necessary as a pastor, as president of the Franklin County NAACP, as a veteran and a citizen, that I speak out against this injustice. William Jennings Bryan once said, never be afraid to stand with the minority when the majority, never be afraid to stand with the minority when the minority is right. For the minority which is right will one day be the majority. Dr. King was fond of saying, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I truly believe the words of Mr. Bryan and Dr. King ring true. As members of the minority population of Franklin County, we have waited for justice to be done with the acknowledgement that it is past time to remove the statue from the public square. We're not asking that the statue be destroyed. We're not asking that it be put, we're asking that it be put in an appropriate place, like a museum. Thought process. How would you feel when you passed the courthouse and had a statue of Nat Turner, Marcus Garvey, or Malcolm X looking down on you? How would you feel in an environment where you were always looked upon as less than? This statue is symbolic of the systematic and institutionalized racism that has been a part of America since day one. To paraphrase Doc Rivers, a basketball coach, who said, we as a people have always loved America, even though America does not love us back. Being in leadership requires making hard decisions, which I know from experience. As a soldier, I was led into battle, and the time came when I had to lead other men into battle. This non-binding referendum is a toothless tiger to satisfy the majority and to continue to oppress the minority. It has come to my attention that you are upset about a video and the way Franklin County was portrayed. I saw the video and I found it to be truthful. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I encourage you to join the Franklin County NAACP and we can engage in a dialogue to make Franklin County better. I thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Cummins.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. On December 7th,
Would you
Virginia
state your-
Military Institute announced the removal and relocation
Ma'am?
of a statue of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson. The writing's on the wall. The tide is turning on this issue. Franklin County School Board remarkably reversed its decision regarding the Confederate flag on student clothing, now permitting it to be banned, another step forward. Please don't doubt for a moment that systemic racism exists in the United States. It's been entwined in the fabric of our government since the beginning. extending long after the Civil War, most notably in measures to ensure segregation in our communities. A book by Richard Rothstein, The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America, is one of many which tell this story. Rothstein is a leading authority on U.S. housing and economic policy. This book is just one testimony among thousands which explains why more than 60% of Franklin County's voters on November 3rd opted to let remain the statue of a Confederate soldier in front of the local courthouse. Those voters do not know any better. But those voters are making a poor choice, and you probably know it. The question is whether you will choose to follow or you choose to lead. Your position in Franklin County is one of leadership, but can you lead? How do leaders condone a statue in front of the local courthouse which memorializes the side that lost in a war a century and a half ago? Ironically, Franklin County did not vote to secede from the Union in the first place. While this statue may be a tribute to lives lost in that ugly war, it has no place towering above the street in front of the courthouse. The fact remains that this statue represents a political view and economic way of life which favored slavery of Black Americans. Today, no one among you would give voice to such a cause. Yet there the statue stands. First erected in 1910 during the Jim Crow era when the Ku Klux Klan was on the rise. Membership was over 4 million in 1920, 100 years ago. You don't think that had anything to do with the placing of that statue in front of the courthouse where justice is supposed to reign? Like many statues so erected and subsequently researched, they had more to do with being a threat to Black people than being a memorial to soldiers in a war. If you insist that the statue simply memorializes Franklin County lives lost in a war, then find another place for it. Funny thing is, Black Lives Matter has tried to find another place, and apparently no one wants it. To let the statue remain in front of Franklin County Courthouse is grossly absurd and out of touch with the direction Franklin County should be heading. I don't care if the referendum suggests that a majority will let it remain there. That majority is misinformed and on the wrong side of history.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else to speak?
I'm gonna have them check one more time outside, and then I will
Okay,
give.
all right, you can go ahead with your phone call.
Okay. Mr. Turnage had reached out and asked that he be allowed to speak via the phone. So I'm going to call him on the number that he's given us. And if he answers, he will just start the 3 minutes, I think, as if he was here.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please consult your directory and...
Nice day.
I'm going to try it again.
I don't understand. 2021 really sucks for me. 2020.
I was gonna say 2020 is gonna be I know. Don't say that.
Hello?
Mr. Turnage,
Yes.
this is Madeline. I'm calling from the Franklin County Board of Supervisors.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome. I'm going to turn, if you can hear me just fine, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Mitchell.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay.
Mr. Tunage, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, sir, I can.
Okay. Not that I need to, but I'll ask you to state your address, please.
Henry Turnage, 1315 Calico Rock Road, Rocky Mount, Virginia.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And you may start.
I just want to say thank the board for my 3 minutes again this month. I had to work tonight, so I want to apologize for not being able to be there in person. But I just want to let y'all know that I'm still at work right now as a father fighting for my children's justice system in Franklin County. I know we had the vote last month, and I know you guys made what you figure is the final decision, but I just want y'all to know that I'm still here fighting, for my children's justice system. I want to say that Happy New Year. I guess you guys can go home to your children and tell them that you held mine back another year. Congratulations is in order, I guess, but I'm still here fighting. I just want y'all to know that I guess y'all can go home tonight and look your children in the eye and say you did it for them. That's just, I guess I don't need the whole 3 minutes for that. If you guys really want to claim your heritage, I'm going to come up there every month, and you're going to take a little bit of your heritage home with you. And you're going to look your children in the eye and explain it to them. Like I said, I got to get back to work, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Standage. We have a good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, no one else to speak? Then I'll close the public hearing. And I won't adjourn us till January the 4th because I think we may meet again before then. Am I correct, Chris?
It all depends, Mr. Chairman, if there is a special call board meeting, it would just depend on the board.
Well, I feel like we'll have one. But, we'll adjourn.
Now, if I can get all of this together.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.